Hi, in this video I'm going to run through some of the core techniques that I use to create music with no input mixers under the name Void Hands. Some of it sounds like something like techno because it has some kind of rhythms. That's interested or intrigued quite a few people who want to try and recreate that, or just interested in seeing how that actually works. So in this video I'll be demonstrating that. This also corresponds with a new Void Hands release, which is on Slumberjack Records. It's available as a digital download and as a tape. The tape has some tracks which are already on YouTube in YouTube videos, and then some that are currently unreleased as well. So that's available now via Slumberjack Records in a link in the description. At the moment I use two mixers for my performance setup and recording setup. There's the Behringer MX1604A on the right and the Soundcraft Spirit Folio F1 on the left here. I've used various of the mixers in the past, but this is the honed down compact setup, which is easy to transport, easy to get to gigs and things like that. In the past I have used up to 24 channel mixing desks, but the feedback limitations are really the number of sends that a desk can have. So for example, the F1 on the left here, it has 14 channels as it claims. So there are 6 mono channels and then some other channels here which are stereo, and then we also have some additional inputs that are just controlled by the pots here. However, using a mixer feedback is only really as good as the number of outputs that it can provide. So with this there are 3 aux sends. So in that respect we can have 3 feedback loops going into 3 of these channels here, and then anything else is kind of limited in its control because aux sends give us the most parametric way of controlling things. For example, we can take the master outputs and put those into a channel as well, but that can get very tenuous because the volume that you'll be outputting at is also affecting that feedback loop there. So I prefer to use aux sends where possible and anything that's parametric controllable like that. The MX1604A is the powerhouse of the setup, and this is actually what creates the rhythms. It's a very unique mixer and can create some very strange sounds. So we'll have a look at that first. I'm just setting back all of the knobs to the unity position, so just to 0. I take the output from the phone socket here. I usually prefer to use a phone's headphone socket where available, particularly on the 1604A, because we have an additional volume control here. So we have the master volume control and then the control room off phone's output there. What I usually do is just set up 3 feedback loops on here. So with this we've got 2 aux sends, one of them is switchable post and pre-fade, the other one is just pre-fade, post-fade, sorry. So I'll take the aux send 1, put that into channel 1, aux send 2 into channel 2, and then this is it's a rather deceiving mixer. I mean, Behringer I think are known for squeezing out the viability in the number of channels and things like that. So this claims to be a 16 channel mixer. It says 16 channels here. Obviously they're not really 16 channels here. We've only got 4 mono channels, and then the stereo channels are counted individually, so there are another 8 there, and then the alt 3/4, which is basically a bus receive, bus input, is counted as 2 channels as well, as are the 2-track in and out RCA jacks there, and the aux returns. So basically everything that you can possibly put into it is counted as a channel on this, but in actual fact, again, like I was saying before, limited by the number of outputs that we can viably use. So this only has the 2 aux sends, but it also has a bus sender on the back, which is controlled by this fader here. So when the mute button is pressed, it actually sends to the bus end instead of the main mix. So this can be exploited by using the aux end at the back, the bus end at the rear, and put it into channel 3. So there we basically just have 3 feedback loops. We can test this as an action by turning up aux 1 on channel 1. We can already see there's something happening there. It's going to be very clicky sounding. We can make that a bit more tonal by pressing the low cut button there. But what we're really interested in is how this can create rhythms. First of all, I can give you a blast of some of the eccentric capabilities of the mixer here, such as this. These sort of sounds are not possible with Soundcraft because it's too clean. One of the virtues of the Behringer Eurorack MX1604A and various of the models that were made around that time is that I think the components are quite cheap and they possess a lot of eccentricities, so it's easy to get very strange sounds from it. Whereas a Soundcraft is a much cleaner harmonic sort of sound, which is useful for the melodic parts, as we'll find out shortly. So with this, I discovered that if you turn up one of the post-fade auxes, so for this I'm using channel 2, which is going out on aux end 2. So if we turn up the post-fade aux at full on both the master aux end and the channel aux end there, then make sure the gain's at full, the low cut's off, the bass is the low boost is at full, and then the mids and highs are right down. And then if we put the volume up full on that channel, we should hear some action after at least a short delay here, so we can see that we've actually got a rhythmic pulse going on here. If we tweak the EQ on this channel, it will change the characteristics of this rhythm that's emerged. So rather counterintuitively, turning up the mid EQ to the middle actually reduces the high frequency components. Turning it down brings in these high frequency components. So mostly everything with an open mixer completely subverts what you would expect to find, and everything is not necessarily intuitive, and there's a lot of experimentation in finding out the differences in settings and sounds. So for example, if we turn down the gain, we lose that high frequency component, but it also speeds up the rhythm a little bit. Turning on the low cut will completely change the rhythm into something that sounds more like a break beat. So things can get even more interesting when we actually feed this into other channels or feed other channels into this. So the moment we have aux 1 available here, which independently, if we listen to that, it's just creating a tone here. If you feed some of the rhythm coming from channel 2 into it, it should modulate that tone with the pulse. It's then also possible to put that back into the channel with the rhythm on it, see what happens there. So you can hear that's influencing the tempo and the characteristic of the rhythm there that's coming from channel 2. It's quite interesting that if we actually feed channel 2 into channel 1, but there's no feedback loop occurring here, on channel 1, basically all that's happening is that we have the rhythm on channel 2 here, and then that is also feeding into channel 1, but that's just going back into channel 2, so there's no additional feedback loop being created here, but we're passing it through another channel strip and passing it through another EQ section. It completely alters the rhythm, which is very interesting. So you can spend hours just playing about with seeing what happens here. Obviously, like I said, there's no real rhyme or reason to how things necessarily work. After using a particular mixer for a while, you will get used to the capabilities and sounds of it. There's something else that we can do with this that's quite cool, is use the empty channel here, channel 4, as a noise channel. So this we can actually feed into one of the other channels here. So if we turn up the EQ to full there, and the gain's at full, then actually send that into channel 1 using the pre-fade aux there, so the slider doesn't actually have to be up because it's on pre-fade aux. What we should hear now on channel 1 is just a lot of noise. And you can hear that's slightly modulated by the beat, which is another eccentricity in that must be because of the crosstalk between the channels being mixed together. So there's nothing actually going into channel 1, which is where the noise is coming from, apart from channel 4, which is the source of the noise, which we've basically created by just turning the gain right up, so we're amplifying nothing and just hearing the background noise of the components there. So we can change the tonal characteristic of that with the EQ as well. But due to the crosstalk from channel 2, it gets a slight modulation of the noise there. And we can accentuate that by actually sending some of that feedback from channel 2 into channel 1. It's also quite easy to break a feedback loop when it's in a state of rhythm like that. So right now, for whatever reason, the way that I've fed back channel 1 into 2 again has affected the rhythm. There's still something going on here that we can hear, but it's disrupted it to the point where it won't create that rhythm as such that we had before. It should return now though, given a few seconds. With the low frequency feedback loops, it does seem that because of the low frequency nature of it, it can sometimes take a second or two for the feedback loop to establish and to create the rhythm, presumably because there's a cumulative effect of the feedback that's occurring there. So this makes us something else that we can do is use the bus send to introduce another feedback loop. Obviously the more we introduce here, the more complex it gets with the creation of the rhythm. But for example, I can send this into channel 1. I'll turn the noise down here so we don't have any noise coming into it. So we basically just have a copy of what's coming out from the speakers to channel 1 here, and then we can press this button here which will send it to channel 3 on the bus send, but this also stops it coming out of the main mix. So if we put the fader up here, I have the alt 3 photo main mix on there, so that will actually bring out anything that's got this pressed to the main mix. But we also have this then going into channel 3, so if I put this up, we're hearing something slightly different, which again, there's no additional feedback going on here. We're just hearing the sounds of crosstalk and the interference created by each channel's components. But If I do subtly introduce some feedback, additional feedback loops here, what we can do is send this back into channel 1. So what we're experiencing here is the rhythm created on channel 2, that's being sent into channel 1, that's being sent to channel 3, and then 3 is going back to 1. So we have this feeding back on itself, then going into this, which is not feeding back with itself, but it's feeding back via channel 3 there. So it's a cross-channel feedback loop. And then I can also introduce the feedback on itself with this aux knob here. So that's created a kind of quite interesting pattern there. So I'm going to leave that as it is. Just turn that off as such from the main mix, so it's still going on, but I can just re-enable it by turning these on. And I'm going to go over to this mixer and have a look at this. So I'm going to take the output from the output from the monitor output on this now, and I'm going to put the output from the Behringer into one of the channels on this, which is going to be channel 6. And then, as I described before, with this we can have 3 feedback loops using the aux N 1, aux N 2 and aux N 3. 2 and 3 are switchable post and pre. 3 is oh no, sorry, 1 is pre, 2 is switchable post and pre, and 3 is post. This is also kind of cool that we've got a slightly more parametric EQ section, that the mid is sweepable. So like I said before, this is very good at creating smoother tones, which are good for sort of melodic components here. So let's see if we can demonstrate this. Actually hearing a bit of noise there for some reason. And nothing happening here. What's going on here? Okay. So these mixers can get a bit dusty, and we get some crackles and things from the sliders. So that's working. Channel 2 we've got some sort of problem with. I'm just going to try and figure that out. I'm not going to stop and redo this video. Channel 3 hopefully works. Yes, there we go. So with this being post-fade aux, the slider will directly control the feedback gain there. This is quite cool because it's got these quite touch sensitive buttons here, so I use this in some other contexts for live performance with a more hands-on kind of free improvisation approach. So it's kind of useful because we can give quite short staccato type notes with it. But I've still got a problem with channel 2 here, so what is going on here? Okay, so it was this button that had got a bit of dusting or something like that. So what we should be able to hear now are these 3 channels feeding back. But yeah, this is cool because we can actually get some very nice clean tones from this. So what I've just created there is very simple frequency beating sort of effect. So we have these two tones that are very close together. And then there's these two channels feeding back independently, 1 and 2. But then I've fed these into channel 3, and there's some feedback going on there as well, which accentuates the difference tone between those two. So it's also possible, because I've just taken the left monitor out of this, to use the pan as an additional sort of output mixer, so we can actually have these two channels on but not hear them, but then also send them to channel 3. So we just get that sort of effect. But what should be really interesting is if we bring in the Behringer here, and so I'll turn these back on, and we can hear this coming in here on channel 6. So it'd be interesting to see what happens if we have this on as well, but then send the rhythm from Behringer over to that and see if we can modulate that. So that actually seems to work best if we modulate the original channels 1 and 2 with Behringer instead of channel 3. So what's actually happening there is that the frequency of the individual individual channels is being altered by what's coming from the Behringer. So if we have a listen to that just on its own, that's it as it is, but if we feed in some of the Behringer to it, oh, wrong channel, it alters the frequency a bit. So then if we have channel 2 as well, it's changing the difference between those pitches, which then on our channel 3, which accentuates those differences, will sound a bit more modulated or dynamic. That's kind of a basic overview of what can be achieved with these two mixers in combination. But I'm just going to take this all back down and start again here and show a slightly different technique, or something that I often do with the Soundcraft F1. So I'm going to use the same rhythm here again with the Behringer. This is coming in here. You can see there's something going on already, even though I can't necessarily hear anything yet. And what's kind of interesting is if you put this into a computer and do a spectral analysis, you'll see that there's a lot going on that's actually above the human hearing range. So I did a very high sample rate recording once and checked that out, and it seemed like the most energy was actually at about 60 kilohertz, which is it's about 3 times above the human hearing range, basically. So there's some interesting stuff going on that's not actually in the hearing range, which is probably affecting the things that are in the hearing range through processes such as heterodyning and things like that. So I'm going to use channel 3 here to emphasize the kind of kick drum sort of thing here. So what I'm going to do with that, this is something that I do kind of fairly regularly, or have done in recent videos, is turn up aux 3 till we get a tone. Maybe take off the bass cut, so we've got a much lower tone there. So this sort of region. But then I want to scale that back So it's just on the edge of feeding back. So this is very, very sensitive. Even the slightest touch of a knob can make the difference between it being over the threshold to feedback or not. So I'm going to just spend a little bit more time trying to get the exact region for that. And hopefully what we should find now is that if the rhythm from the Behringer is fed into channel 3, that it will provoke that channel to feed back okay, so there we go. So that gives some emphasis of a sort of kick drum type thing to the rhythm. And because the very short sort of clicky sounds coming from that, it provokes the channel 3 into feeding back for a very short amount of time, and then has a decay to it. So you can also hear this in effect with a higher frequency. So I use channel 1 here, get a tone with that. Get that just on the threshold of feeding back again, and then feeding the Behringer to it. So that produces a kind of nice pingy sort of sound. So I'll probably keep that, have this as well, which I kind of can't hear now. So I'm not sure if the bass is there or not. It's there. It's there. So I'm trying to use channel 2 now for something a bit more interesting. So it's kind of limited with the amount of things that we can actually use for a particular track. Because obviously in the middle of a piece or performance, it's kind of hard to then say, for example, I want to change the pitch of channel 1. We can't just go like that because it'll stop it working. Can't really just necessarily turn it up because it'll just go more into feedback. So it's a very sensitive sort of thing where we have to find states where there are a few parameters that we know are safe as such in order to manipulate. Most of those might be on the Behringer because that'll affect the whole of everything basically, which I'll demonstrate in a second. So with channel 2 I'll create something that is in more of a continuous state of feedback. See what happens if we send a bit more channel of the Behringer into it. Suppose that'll do. That does to demonstrate it. And then, now that's all set up, we can have a play with the Behringer and see what the changes on this do to the things on the Soundcraft. that's a basic overview of some of the approaches that I use in my no input mixer compositions. As you can imagine, and if you've tried using an input mixer, it's very sensitive and it can take quite a lot of time to mess about with things and play around with the possibilities and options that you've got without it sounding completely crazy. It's very easy to get sounds like that or go absolutely crazy, but it's very delicate work to try and find things that work sensitively with the rhythms or approach that you might be going for. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to check out the tape that I've just released on Slumberjack Records. Links in the description, and yeah, do like and subscribe for future videos of live performances and tutorials and things like that, which I have in the pipeline.